to another episode of 6 and 6, where we cover 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, start your timer. We open today in Manila, where a massive fire has rippled across the Shanty district over the water. The video shows a fire whose rage seems almost vitriolic as it rips through the homes of the local population. From BBC, quote, hundreds of residents have been left without homes after around 1,000 homes were destroyed in the blaze on Sunday, the Manila Fire District said. Dozens of fire engines and fireboats were deployed to tackle the blaze, and the Philippine Air Force sent 2 helicopters which scooped up water from the Manila Bay to help extinguish the fire. Emergency services have reported no casualties so far and are yet to identify the cause, end quote. This has come on the heels of a fire in Chinatown district that took the lives of 11 people. Next to Australia, where the bourse operator ASX, the facilitator of the local stock exchange, has pledged to update its buying and selling software before 2029. From Reuters, quote, ASX added that it was working towards the delivery of the first release of the clearing service in 2026, with costs currently expected to be at the upper end of the previously estimated 105 million Australian dollars to 125 million Australian dollar range. ASX has been looking to replace its aging all-in-one clearinghouse electronic sub-register system software using blockchain technology, but abandoned the overhaul in November 2022, 6 years after it announced it, citing concerns about the product's complexity and scalability, end quote. Shifting focus towards Europe, where Angela Merkel has recently released her memoir and has spoken about her role in deterring Russian aggression. From BBC, quote, she says she believes that the war in Ukraine would have started sooner and would have likely been worse if Kiev had begun the path to NATO membership in 2008. Quote, we would have seen military conflict even earlier. It was completely clear to me that President Putin would not have stood idly by and watched Ukraine join NATO. And back then, Ukraine as a country would certainly have not been as prepared as it was in February 2022, end quote. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky disagrees. He describes Ms. Merkel's NATO decision, backed by then French President Nicolas Sarkozy, as a clear, quote, miscalculation that emboldened Russia. Next to South America, where outside of La Paz, Bolivia, massive floods has forced people out of their homes and caused rescue teams to jump into action. From Reuters, quote, there was screaming in terrible desperation. Boyo Etayas, Municipal President Jolito Calvijo told Reuters, quote, a 4-year-old girl is missing and her parents are desperate. People had to leave their houses through the roofs because there was no other way to get out because the mud was already too deep, Calvijo said. Civil Defense Vice Minister Juan Carlos Calvamontes confirmed the rescue teams were searching for the young girl, end quote. President Luis Acre has vowed to deploy more resources to all of those affected and to begin an investigation into the causes of the flooding and the mudslides. Next, we come to Africa, where another election is coming down to the wire, this time in Namibia, where the SWAPO candidate Nandi Ndaitwah has come up against a new political movement behind the charismatic character Itula. From BBC, quote, but a mood of disillusionment with liberation movements in South Africa, coupled with anti-incumbency feelings in many parts of the world, may pose a threat to what would be a historic achievement. Vice President Ntumbo Nandi Nwaba, 72, was the flag bearer for SWAPO, which has led the country since independence from the apartheid South Africa in 1990. Tanzania's Samia Suluhu Hassan is currently Africa's only female president, so Nandi Ndaitwah would be joining an exclusive club if she is victorious, end quote. And we finish today in Central America, where the Senate of Nicaragua has now bestowed more powers on the now co-presidents, including over national media and extending their terms to 6 years. They are also slotted to vote on a piece of legislation that would be sure to stir the pot internationally. From Reuters, quote, "We are tired of having the sword of Damocles always hanging over us or a boot always pressing against our neck," he said. "The law will become effective once it is published in the official gazette, which could happen within days. The, quote, law to protect Nicaraguans from foreign sanctions and aggressions declares sanctions imposed by foreign states, groups of states, and organizations that violate international law as, quote, null and void without any legal effect," end quote. It rules that no person or entity can suspend goods or services to sanction others or companies, or they could face a fine. If you want to read any of today's articles, they'll all be linked in the description below that like and subscribe button. If you want to listen to the podcast, come back to here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the RSS feed or YouTube channel, and go check out the Twitter tirade over at Your Daily Flip on Twitter. With all that said, stay safe, don't die.